Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, classmates. I am Karen M. Cacho, and today I'm going to talk to you about the broad world of marine insurance. Have you ever wondered how much a bulk carrier or a container ship costs? Or maybe a tanker ship? Have you ever wondered how much will be lost if something happens to these ships? Well, probably millions of dollars, depending on the damages. But I guess the more important question is who will be paying for these losses? When I began researching about the topic of marine insurance, I realized that marine insurance in itself is so broad that entire books and courses are being dedicated to it. And to assume that I will be able to explain the entirety of marine insurance in just an hour is quite nonsensical. So, with that in mind, in this presentation, I will go through these following topics so that we may be able to scratch the surface and somehow grasp and understand what comprises the contract of marine insurance. So we have perils of the sea, exclusions, types of marine insurance, types of marine policy, seaworthiness in marine insurance clauses and policy conditions, and marine losses. Marine insurance is a contract that the insurer undertakes to indemnify the assured in the manner and to the extent thereby agreed against marine losses. That is to say, losses incidental to marine adventure. In a simpler definition, it is a type of insurance that covers cargo being transported as well as the ships during the voyage. It also covers terminals, ports, and other forms of transport ferrying those cargoes. It's easy to assume that marine insurance only covers the goods and the ship, but actually, the cover is broader than that. It covers the goods, whether they are on land, trucks, roads, rails, the air, and the ship, of course, even barges. And because the mode of transportation for these goods changes from one to another, it is more convenient to provide a blanket type of insurance to cover the goods whether they are on land, at seas, or the air. As a bit of historical background, marine insurance is actually one of the oldest forms of insurance. It is said to have started in China at around 3000 BC. And through the centuries of evolution, it transformed to what it is today. There are two classes of marine insurance. The first one is ocean marine insurance, basically covering ocean based exposures, and also referred to as simply marine insurance. So the second one is inland marine insurance, basically covering land based exposures, and it is also known as goods and transit insurance. The difference between the two, aside from the mode of transport that they cover, is that marine insurance covers transport of cargo between nations or countries, while goods in transit insurance covers transportation of cargoes within a certain nation or country only. And for the purpose of clarification, I will only be focusing on ocean marine insurance that will be from here on out just simply marine insurance. So, why is marine insurance necessary? When it comes to ships, the stakes of damages are actually higher because of all the factors involved in the operation, like risk of losing valuable cargo or expensive ships, the risk of damage due to oil pollution, and of course, the risk of losing lives of seafarers due to accidents. To ensure that all risks can be managed without the lack of monetary fund, different marine insurances are compulsory for ships and ship owners to take. For example, the Maritime Labor Convention Certificate of Financial Security. A ship needs to post and carry two of the certificates. One for repatriation and payment of abandoned crew, and another one for compensation for death and long-term disability. And we also have what we call the blue cards. These are flag state trading certificates of liability insurance. Now, these are compulsory for ships to carry by the Bunker and Wreck Removal Convention. What are the perils that may be covered by the marine insurance? So, when we say perils or perils of the sea, these are the losses or damages that happens to the cargo or the ship during the voyage by the immediate act of God without the intervention of human agency. Now, when we say immediate act of God, that does not include the ordinary action of the waves and the winds. So these are the accidents that most of the time would cost millions of dollars in damages, and even worse, claim lives of seafarers and pollute marine life and environment. So what are these losses that fall under perils of the sea? So we have sinking. So when a ship, let's say, encounter a storm at sea and goes missing after a reasonable amount of time, it still cannot be found. It can be presumed to sunk due to perils of the sea. The next one is shipwreck. It happens when the ship strikes against a rock or driven to the shore by forceful winds and becomes damaged. It may be damage that would cause total wreckage of the ship, or the ship is rendered unable to navigate except at great cost. The next one is stranding. It happens when a ship gets off course by accident and is driven to the shallow water, then receives damage. So the next one is collision. Collision happens when a ship strikes against another ship or another subject matter. So fire. Any fire that occurred on board and damages the cargo in the ship may be covered by the insurance, as well as the damages incurred during prevention of fire. But it does not include a fire damage due to the inherent vice of the subject matter insured. Now, there are also exclusions that may not be covered by the insurance under perils of the sea. So, what are these exclusions? One, we have willful misconduct of the assured. Willful misconduct can range from mere negligence, gross negligence or culpable negligence, reckless disregard, to willful misconduct. So, this is a condition where the assured is privy to matters that would later result to loss or damages. So, for example, as a ship manager, you are well aware that the ship you are managing is having problems with the main engine, but you turned a blind eye or probably delayed repairs. Now, this eventually led to the main engine failure during the ship channeling, which resulted to the ship being stranded and damaged. Now, this case would probably fall under willful misconduct of the assured and may not be claimed as perils of the sea. Our next one is ordinary wear and tear. As ships will eventually succumb to the natural progress of decay and decomposition. Of course, this will result in damages, and in such cases, the damage will not be covered by the insurance. An example of this is the case of Prudent Tankers versus Dominion Insurance. So, a tanker sunk in good weather conditions, and the question before the court was whether the loss was covered by the Inchmarie clause as a latent defect or simply due to ordinary wear and tear. So Goff J stated, however, the balance of authority indicates that whether the defect is attributable to ordinary wear and tear, there can be no recovery under each MARI clause. Our next one is ordinary leakage and breakage. As with ordinary wear and tear, any leakage and breakage that is not caused by accident will not come under perils of the sea. Our next one is inherent vice of the subject matter insured. So if the damage is due to the nature of the subject matter insured, then it will come under the category of inherent vice and therefore excluded from the insurance. So, an example of this would be a shipment of rice from Thailand to Iraq, let's say. And during the transport, the bags of rice were exposed to moisture and eventually it became damaged and it developed molds. So, due to the inherent vice of the rice to develop molds when exposed to moisture, this will not be covered by the insurance. Our next one is rats and vermin. So any damages caused on board by rats or vermin is also an exclusion to the perils of the sea. Next is insolvency. So losses, damages, or expenses arising from insolvency or financial default of the owners, managers, charterers, or operators of the vessel will not be categorized as perils of the sea. Next one is deliberate damage. So losses due to deliberate damage or deliberate destruction of the subject matter insured or any part thereof by the wrongful act of any person or persons will not be covered by the insurance under perils of the sea. So those perils and exclusions may vary differently from one type of insurance to another and would also depend on what type of policy is in effect. And the burden of proving that the loss is indeed because of perils of the sea lies on the ship owner. And why is that? Well, it is because most of the time they have all the relevant information.